I'm Deepen Raj Rakal, a facilitator of today's program. I would like to welcome you all in today's session, Service Leadership in Self and Society. We are delighted to have Ms. Aswita Acharya as a special guest. Let's welcome Ms. Aswita Acharya with a round of applause. You may use this virtual system. Let me give you some introduction about Ms. Aswita. Ms. Aswita is a graduate of Parsala's SLC batch of year 2012. She is currently enrolled in PhD in economics program at George Mason University. During her time at her undergraduate school, Wichita State University, so Aswita participated in various leadership, service learning, and organizational projects and programs. She served on the executive board of numerous student organizations, conducted multiple service trips, attended more than 5 more United Nations, coordinated leadership camps, and interned for the university's leadership development programs. These are some of the activities that she has carried out. She has been involved in. So these days, she puts her expertise to use as a founding president of the Society of Nepali Women in Economics. We are honored to have you here, Aswita. Now, this virtual floor is over to you, and I request our students to listen actively our guest and participate in a question answer sessions, or you may ask questions at the end of a program. So, Aswita, this virtual floor is over to you. Now you may start.
Thank you so much, sir. Before I move any further, सबैजना directors र teachers हरूलाई चाहिँ मेरो न्यानो न्यानो नमस्कार. The rest of my session will move forward with me sharing my screen. I really apologize. I haven't used Teams very well before, but I'll do my best. All right, so I think when I present my own screen, I can't see you all. We'll make this work. All right, so once again, namaskar and hello to everyone. So excited to be here with you all. Pashala is my alma mater, and I basically grew up in the grounds of this school. So happy that you're all taking part in something that I've cherished for forever. And I look forward to continuing some of my experience sharing throughout this year with you all, and perhaps we could even take this to the next level maybe next year. So my topic of conversation today is service leadership in self and society. I apologize if the title sounds kind of off-putting because it's so heavy, but I will try to make this as easy and convenient for you all in my presentation today. And if I end up not accomplishing that, then you may ask me questions at the end and also throughout the rest of the year. So just a little bit about me. I made a really tacky getting to know me chart here so I could show you that I'm very relatable. I graduated from Parshala's SLC in 2012. I also went to Ratabangla for A-levels where actually, in fact, Dipendra sir was my accounting teacher. He was a tough grader, but I hope he will go easy on you all. I graduated from there in 2014. And thanks to how well I did in his class, I started my bachelor's in the US in 2015 in accounting, actually, but gradually moved into economics as I figured out what I wanted to do with my life. So I graduated with my bachelor's in 2019 from Wichita State. The top right photo up there is actually me in my graduation in 2019. And I finished my master's just this May, also from Wichita State in economics. As the minister said earlier, I am an incoming economics PhD student at George Mason University. So I'm traveling across the country to attend another school, to attend university for 5 more years. And who knows, maybe I will see some of you all there in a couple of years. And as mentioned also earlier, I am currently the president of the Society for Nepali Women in Economics. So apart from school, that's what I spend most of my time serving my community and serving my society with. So what in fact makes me so eligible, so priceless that I get to stand here in front of you all today and share my experiences on service learning. So I just want to outline that I have participated in numerous community service at local establishments in the past few years, starting perhaps at my time in high school. So I was as young as you were when I started. My very first community service project, and we used to call it volunteering back then, was going to an orphanage and spending time with the kids there and basically trying to get to know them. I mean, surely back then I didn't really know much about this whole industry and what the components of it are, but that's where I started. I don't know how many of you have heard of Habitat for Humanity. I've also done a couple of projects with them. Is there a way for me to ask students to raise their hands and gauge how many have heard of Habitat for Humanity? Raise your hands if you've heard of Habitat for Humanity. No. Okay. One. Great. Awesome. Ravana, I'm so sorry to pick on you, but would you be willing to share just a couple of words on what you think Habitat for Humanity is?
Habitat for Humanity, like they make shelters and they will do projects on to basically fulfill the needs of people below poverty line. They build shelters, like that's the main I've seen of Habitat for Humanity.
Absolutely correct. So specific tasks that I've done in building houses and homes is I've dug the base level. I've painted houses. I did my best to put up windows into the window frames. So those are some of the actual tasks that I've done. But of course, the impact of those actions were much more profound. And more specifically, my interest in service learning and service leadership increased because I was able to attend 2 alternative spring breaks in my university. So this was basically a week-long trip to first to Catalina, actually, and then to DC, where I got to experience tourism and volunteering together. So the combined word here is volunteerism, but basically we would focus on one specific topic, learn certain things about them, conduct specific activities to help that topic. For example, in helping biodiversity conservation, me and my group of friends, we dug trails where people would hike so that the rest of the grass would not go bad. It could be as little as that. Or in DC, we were learning hunger and homelessness. So over there, we got to help out people moving furniture, free furniture into people's homes. I got to serve food for people who didn't have enough to feed themselves, or if they were homeless, they could just come into the shelter and ask for some food. So those are some of the really profound experiences that I've had that honestly has made me feel like I should talk about this, and perhaps I will be able to encourage you all in pursuing the path that I took and even more. So to get, or I guess I made a PowerPoint or a collage at the recommendation of one of my mentors. So I just want to outline here that not everything that I've done in these photos are service projects. The one on the bottom right you see there, that's definitely me trying to do my best picking up the shovel and shoveling dirt off of the ground to where it needs to go. The top right is a service project. So me and my group of student organization, we basically collected money and we asked the organization called Boys and Girls Club what they needed. So they're an institution that helps tutor underprivileged students. So basically for students in the city that I live in, if there are students, young students who cannot get tutoring by paying for it, then Boys and Girls Club will basically look after you for a couple of hours after school and help you with homeworks and stuff like that. So not all actions in service have to be like action oriented. It could also be monetary, as you all know. So that was some of the things that I've done. The others are just glimpses of me participating in different Model UN activities, debates, discussions. The big trophy here was actually me handing out the trophy. I was the president of the Multicultural Greek Council, and we had amazing relationships with other service-oriented organizations. So these are some of the glimpses that I wanted to share with you all. First of all, to seem personable, and second of all, also to encourage you to pursue this path so that, this is a pre-uni program, so later on when you apply for colleges, these are ultimately the places that you're all going to be. So hopefully that kind of lights a spark in you all. And yeah, keep these in mind as I talk about the next steps that will come up in the third and fourth slides. All right, so to kind of go into the meat of today's conversation or my lecture with you all, I wanted to emphasize that the key terms here are service learning and service leadership instead of just service. So does anyone in here, or would anyone like to take a random guess at what the true difference is between just service and service learning or service leadership? I know a few familiar names in here, so I might pick on you if no one volunteers. All right, nobody? I'm gonna give it a couple of seconds. Come on. All right, lots of names in here. Aditya, would you like to give it a try? Adhikari? No? Okay. How about Janique, would you like to give it a go? What do you think the difference is between service and service learning?
I think that service means to serve others, and service learning means to learn how to serve others.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a very pure and simple example, right? Like who is the impact going towards? Thank you so much, by the way. I'm sorry I picked on you, but that was perfect. So I want to talk a little bit about this so that you really get the gist of what I'm trying to explain with today's session and also the rest of the assignments that I might give out to you all. So service, when you think about service, we think about our parents or our guardians, our cousins going out to maybe hand out food or clothes or things like that during the earthquake, during COVID, during other disasters, right? During floods. So that's one type of service. So that's a provision of ailment when other people are suffering. But service learning actually is a very personal experience for people who are involved in the service providing industry. So basically, as young learners like yourself, will pick projects that are meant to provide service to the society that you live in. You actually undergo a transformative process. The keywords down there in my list there. Where you realize that one act that you provide to the society creates so and so effects And this is how like everything moves together in the broad world. So basically, once you serve, the work's not done. You have to undergo a certain process to realize that in serving your society, you undergo some changes, and the society itself, you know, is a moving system that will fix certain bad things like flood. I mean, we can't fix flood itself, but we can turn to manage flood related disasters, right? So basically, service learning is almost, you can almost think of it like a class. So basically, if you were taking a class and that class asked you to do a service project, you would have to, you can imagine having to write reflection papers. That's the worst part of it. But service learning basically involves a lot of reflection procedures and reflective thinking to help you understand what exactly it is you're doing. And then service leadership, of course, is about you. So basically, for in understanding service for the society, basically you're supposed to help your leadership capabilities expand and sharpen it as much as possible so that you can apply it to other places, such as your workplace or your university. So those are some of the moving pieces that I'm going to try to tackle as we move on with this throughout the year. But some of the major questions that I would like you to think of as I talk about other things today are in doing service. So basically, if you pick a project, like my first project, like I said, was going to volunteer at the orphanage. I mean, sure, back then I just did it because people told me that I should. My school asked me to conduct a service project and I picked it. But what could be my objectives of going to an orphanage, right? So those are some of the really critical questions that you have to think of when you're not just providing service, but conducting a service learning project. The next question that you really, really have to think about and truly critically tackle it are who truly benefits from your service project. So when I went to the orphanage to spend time with the kids there, who do you think truly benefited? Like, what was was me just simply going to the orphanage enough to enrich the lives of the kids? Perhaps, but maybe not, because maybe I didn't really go with an agenda. And the truth is I didn't. I didn't really know what I was doing back then. But you really have to think about who truly benefits from the activity. Was it just for me to go in and sign off a paper? Perhaps, but is that really what you want, right? So then what do you gain? So obviously, you're trying to provide service to the society at large with the hopes that they will get something out of it. But what about you? What about the person who is going through, who's taking the time out of your day, your life to help other people in achieving some help that they need or some enrichment or empowerment that they need, right? So what kind of experiences do you take away from it? And then what really is the difference between helping and empowering? Does anyone know what empowering is?
Empowering is more like like encouraging them to do something, while helping is directly supporting them through their physical needs and basic needs.
Absolutely. So I don't know how many of you get a lot of scoldings at the house, but a lot of times our parents are like, you can only take the horse to where the water is. You can't really force itself to feed. So that's the difference in between helping and empowering. So if you're helping somebody, you're just supporting them in doing a certain task. But if you're empowering someone, then you're truly teaching them to look at what's around them and make the most out of what they can do. So it's about helping them tap their potential instead of just helping them accomplish some of their tasks. All right. So basically, if you're going to conduct a service learning project, if you're going to experience a service leadership program, right? What kind of help would you want to provide? Would you want to help people or would you want to empower people? So these are some of the really critical questions, like I said earlier, that you'll have to tackle once we get into the details of the program. And like I said, this has to be a transformative process for you all. Sure, it may or may not be as transformative for the people receiving the help, right? So if your concern is to protect birds in Godavari, you might be doing some activities that you think are helpful for those birds. So you set up certain traps for some animals that may be eating the birds, or you may be putting different posters that help people figure out where not to go so that they don't disturb the birds, right? But the reality is sometimes the help that you think you're providing may or may not really impact the lives or the status of the thing or the people or the group that you're trying to target. So what if both of those activities don't really end up helping the birds? The thing is, that's okay, because this is all a learning process. What I'm trying to deliver here is that this process has to be transformative for you as the one who provides the service. Like, you have to take certain key lessons out of it. So basically just try to be as deep as possible. And then kind of as a backbone or like a guiding principle for all of this whole entire course, this lecture, I would like you to think about this cycle that was written by a guy whose last name was Kolb in 1984. Basically, he thought that the learning cycle, especially with the help of service, goes around in circles, from feeling, watching, thinking, doing, and then feeling again. So this is a circle where basically you're feeling through concrete experiences, you're watching through reflective observation, you're thinking through abstract conceptualization, which is very critical at people your age, and then you're doing active experimentation. So you're really going out into the field and making the impact that you have thought will work. Right? So these are some of the moving components that I would like you to keep in mind throughout the rest of the year, perhaps, because I would encourage you all to take a year to complete your service projects once we really get this started. So does anyone have any questions so far? Okay. If there are no questions, then weirdly enough, I'm towards halfway of my presentation, so we might be able to spend some time with a Q&A, and that doesn't have to be limited to just service learning. It could be about anything. You can ask me questions about anything. I was in your seats like 8-9 years ago, so I could answer almost anything that you might want to ask. All right, so roughly, this is a program plan that I would like to propose to you all for the first year. And of course, it's not set in stone because I would like us to be very interactive and figure out what works. And this is also my first time doing this with you all. So we will fix this if there needs to be any fixing, but the general timeline of our year will be picking our project, visiting the site, creating a plan, doing the real service itself, and then creating some evaluation reports. So to kind of go in depth with this plan, I hope it has made sense that the purpose of me coming in here today and explaining all of this to you is to not even just encourage you, but to assign you all your personal service projects. So that's a disclaimer. If you haven't guessed yet, you are going to do a service project, thanks to you being a student of the Pre-Uni program. So yay. Stay assured, this will help you a lot in your application process for universities later on, and honestly will also help you broaden your horizon for the rest of your lives. So this is a very rewarding experience, not just emotionally and maybe even spiritually, but very logistically. You will get the appropriate rewards for as much effort you put in. All right. Okay, so generally we will start with the first step, picking your project. So honestly, the main question is what emotions drive your project choice, but you can feel free to think about this in any way possible. If you've seen your parents volunteer or serve a certain group of people or a certain community, certain environmental cause, you can choose that. But I would really like you to focus on what emotions and what feelings you think are attached to that for you, not your parents or your brother or your sister or whoever, but for you, and pick your project that way. Like, it doesn't have to be something that someone else has done. It could be something entirely new. When I was young, maybe as young as you all, I was so I was very empathetic towards other kids. So maybe you can pick a project that has to do with helping underserved kids. You do realize that you're so privileged to be attending a pre-university program at the high school level. So what about the students in a village that's 50 kilometers down where you live who don't get as many opportunities, right? So what can we do for them? Maybe those are, and of course the emotions that are in play here are the feeling of privilege and the realization that some people out in the world exist who don't have as much, not as much as you, right? So these are some of the logical ways to think that will help you figure out the emotions that drive your project choice. It could also be something completely different. It could be women empowerment. It could be helping your neighborhood maintain cleanliness, right? It could be helping every student in this program figure out what their talents are. I mean, that's that's borderline service and something else, but we could work with it if that's what you're truly passionate about. So basically, I want you to figure out what do you think is wrong with this world, or at least the society that you live in, and would you like to do something about it? So that's the first part. And then eventually, once we've figured out your project, we will try to visit the site if possible, or we will just evaluate it with the help of other people who may know things about it. So we'll collect information in terms of perhaps interviews, some other data, websites. Does that organization have a Facebook group? Do you know anyone there? Do you know anyone that works there? Can you relate to it in any way at all? And then what do you see and observe there? So where do you see the gaps, right? Where can you come in and do something? And then with those answers, we will create a service plan. Each of you will create your own service plan to make the impact, to make up for the emotions that you've gotten there, right? So this is the step before the doing itself, the reflecting. And then the fourth step will obviously be conducting service leadership. So after having done your homework, you will all go out into the field or whatever that is, and then conduct your service leadership, a service learning project. And periodically, you might be asked to write a journal, a report, or even a status update on the progress or the trajectory of where you're going. So what will you do on site? Will you, if you're going to visit an orphanage, will you read to them? Will you read to the kids? Will you help them cook? Will you teach them how to fly a kite, right? How often will you visit them? If your goal is to visit them every week, is that effective for you? Do you have the time to do that? If you visit them only once a month, is that enough for them, right? So we have to find a happy medium. And then, of course, the final, and honestly, steps 4 and 5 go hand in hand. So you should be able to reflect and evaluate what you're doing and be able to answer the question of, has your objective really been achieved? So by the end of your first year, we would like to have your portfolio that explains exactly what you did, exactly why you did it, exactly how you did it, and then what the outcomes of your project were. So that's the kind of a service program plan I'm proposing to you all. Please give it a thought, and we can chat about this as I finish, or even during my later lectures. I think I'm kind of towards the end of my presentation, and yep, okay, so if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them to me now. These are just some of the snaps of my graduation that I was so excited to put up here for you all. This was from 2019, and I don't know, like I have attended 3 graduations for my SLC, my high school and university, and this was honestly the most exciting one. This was a huge sports venue that was full of people right before the pandemic started, and just such a momentous occasion. And I would encourage you all to visualize this kind of a future like this, right? Okay, so I would like to stop here and hope that you're all up for talking. Okay, are there any initial thoughts that anyone would like to share?
Okay, we encourage you to ask questions because you might have so many questions why this thing is important for your college life, for your personal satisfaction. So maybe like there might be some questions. Okay, so please ask questions, and we hope Aswita will be working with us to make our pre-uni program better, because we believe in, as we believe in meaningful education for meaningful life. So we are working for that. I'm sure you might have questions, but you are not asking these questions. Okay, so please ask questions and clarify if you have any doubts. These things are very important in your own life as well as if you apply to college. So these things matter a lot. So please ask questions.
So is there anyone here who has volunteered before? We've got a quiet bunch in here.
So you can just pick the name and you can ask them questions individually if they are not volunteering on their own. That's a punishment. That's a punishment for this people. Vijaya
Okay.
is asking. Vijaya,
Absolutely. There is a question from Vijay, I think. Could you please go and
Is it in the chat box? Okay, sure.
Yeah, chat box. Just look at there.
I'm a full-time student, so this is a side project, and it should be for you all too. So, like having led such privileged lives, we don't get to just focus on our careers and call it good, right? We have to give back to the society, and this is exactly what it is for me, and should be what it is for you all. Hope that answers your question.
Any other questions, please? Even if your mic is not working, you can just type it there. Okay, come on.
Excuse me.
Yeah. Yes, please.
You mentioned that we will be working. We will be working in like service providing projects, and you mentioned that we will like choose our own area of service. So will we be like starting a whole new project, or will we like volunteer in like ongoing projects which meet our interests?
That's a really good question, actually. So you're free to do both. You can start something on your own, and of course, that's going to take a bit more effort than something that's already established. But if you think that, if your goals align with a project that's already started, for example, if there's a local library that needs help, that needs volunteers, and you're willing to provide that service, you're free to do that.
So like when we start our own new like service project, like the success rate of that project, wouldn't it be like really risky kind of, because like we're starting new and then like we're just not very
Yeah, that's a good point, which is why earlier I was trying to emphasize on the fact that you might be providing some kind of a service that you think is best for the recipient. However, what's truly important is the kind of transformative process that you go through. So as long as you've given you 100%, as long as you're the one who has taken some lessons out of this entire program, I think that's a tangible enough success, even though the success that you measure with the recipient might not be as big. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Thank you. And
Okay.
also like in this like time of COVID-19 and all those like ongoing lockdowns and all, how will we like conduct these service projects?
That's a really good point. So we would definitely have to work around whatever logistics we can. Of course, if there are certain projects that you would have liked to have done and we cannot, then we might have to pick something else that we can, something you could do either virtually or work closely locally during the times that you can go outside and can visit them. But yeah, we'll work around it. Don't worry.
Thank you.
Of course, service doesn't stop because of COVID, does it? Awesome. So I think I finally have learned how to use this chat box. Nikesh says, if I plan on helping stray dogs or typically volunteer in an organization that helps animals, will that also be counted as a service toward society? Yes, it can. It definitely can. You would just have to create your own plan that will help you create a service learning out of it. So as long as you accomplish that goal, you're free to choose whatever kind of service you want. Of course, we'll go through an approval process. So basically, I'll ask you all to submit your plans to me, and we will go back and forth with it. I mean, that being said, I will try to be a bit strict with this because I want you all to get out of your comfort zones and tap into things that you may not really have thought of. Like if you're already someone who helps stray dogs, then maybe it's time for you to try something new. But maybe it might also be time for you to continue. So we will just take this on a case-by-case basis. Thanks for asking.
So when are we really going to start doing all of these things and pick the project firstly and all of that following?
Mm-hmm. Thanks for the question, Parth. So I'm going to wait on that with the coordinators. I'm going to wait for their direction and give you all, I think I'm going to treat our program like an actual course. So whenever I get the heads up from the school, we'll start. Any other questions? You can ask me personal questions if you want.
More questions, please. More.
Sorry, Asruta, I was just out for a while. Did you check that question sent by Nikesh?
Yes. Yeah. I just answered him.
Thank you. Sorry.
More questions. More. Okay, if you don't have any questions, then I think we have to go ahead with no questions at all.
If you all do have any questions, you can always find me on Facebook or.
I think Vijay has asked another question, so you can just look at the chat box.
You will be responsible for this on your own. So you can treat this like an actual course, like a class, but this will be something that helps you apply to universities later on. If I'm ever, yeah, go ahead.
And if I have to leave by some circumstances, then whose responsibility will it be if I have to leave?
If you leave what?
Due to some circumstances, to whom will my responsibility go?
If you leave the school?
No, the service project. If I have to leave.
The service project. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, I would definitely encourage you not to, but we will figure out some contingency plans. And if we need to shorten the duration of your project or anything like that, then we'll try to work around it. The goal is, of course, for you to deliver the service, but most importantly, you have to experience this. So we will do what we can if any of you have to leave your service sites for any reason. But as long as we can, we will work around it. So the responsibility will still be yours. You'll just take it in different ways.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Are we like conducting this program like projects in groups or individually?
I would encourage this to be a very individual and personal process. But if I have the opportunity to come to Nepal, hopefully in the winter, we will try to do something as a group. And I'm saying this because everyone kind of has to go through their own journey, and because we're doing everything online, it might be a bit difficult to coordinate multiple groups for me. But if you all submit it together as individuals, then I can just treat it as like separate projects, right? So for now, we're going to keep this as your individual projects, and perhaps when you're in your second year, we can do things in groups if your interests are aligned. There was someone else with a question earlier.
Yeah, same question. It was the same question.
Okay. Were you asking this question because like you already know, or you're already volunteering together, or just in case?
Just in case.
Just in case. All right, yeah. I feel like if you participate as a group, sure, your group will bond and everything, but the responsibility of the task and the service learning will dissipate. So I would really like to avoid that, especially when you're first learning it. Eventually, you can work together and conduct service in groups. Is there anyone who's really, really scared of what I talked about today at all? Okay, is there anyone who's really excited to do this?
Excuse me.
Go ahead.
Like in many like service related programs and all, what I've seen is like in the beginning people are all like, the engaged people are all like, they're all hyped and they'll like, you know, make various commitments and all, and later on as they start doing the project, the interest slowly fades out, and then the activities they conduct, they also fade out. So like, what do you think is necessary to keep like the interest going and the you know, commitment towards the project going? Because like slowly, due to various factors including like time management and, you know, like the person being engaged in other stuff, the interest and the whole project starts to fall out like later on. So like, what do you think is necessary to keep it going on?
Thank you for such a sentimental question, because as you will experience later on in your lives, you will juggle with this question for as long as you're in academics and perhaps also in your work life. Okay, so the answer is you have to prioritize. So you have to figure out if this is really important for you, and I will do my best to help you realize that this is, because as long as this is a rewarding experience, you will be interested. That's my bet, right? It may not be true, but we will try to keep it that way. And it's all about time management and commitment, of course. So basically, if you decide in your service plan that you're going to visit your site every 2 weeks, then you keep up that commitment. If you don't go this Saturday, you go on your alternate Saturday. So basically, you kind of make it happen. And we will keep some accountability checks in place to help make sure that you do conduct your activity, perhaps some signatures, perhaps there are some supervisors that you will have to be answerable to, right? We will create working relationships with people who witness you do the job so that you can do it for a whole year. Or if you really are tight on time, then maybe we can adjust your timeline to reflect one visit a month. So don't really worry about whether or not this will stick around. We will just do our best with what we're given. Any other questions?
I think they don't have any questions. Okay, Asruta. So thank you, Asruta, for sharing your own experience and encouraging our students to involve in service leadership. I think they got the very clear idea. They're pretty they're clear about what is service learning, and service leadership. And you have really proven that the meaningful education for meaningful life, because you have really worked hard, and you have like, you have given some sort of impact to the society, and which is very important, and which is expected from your school as well. So we hope like our students will get benefit in the future as well. We'll be in contact, and hopefully when you come Nepal, then at that time we'll be working together, and our students will be working together. They will be getting your guidance. Okay, dear students, for your kind information, Asruta is all the way from the US. I think it's already around 10 or 11:30, I guess, right, Asruta? So we have taken your precious time from your busy schedule, and best of luck for your PhD. And as a teacher, like, I'll be very happy once I I'm sure we'll be working together, and we'll share these happy moments in the future as well. So Asruta, thank you very much for conducting today's session. So we are very proud, and we are very much delighted to have you here. होइन, आज हामीले चाहिँ एकदमै खुसी लाग्यो. अब होपफुल्ली हाम्रो धेरैजना भाइ बहिनीहरूले चाहिँ तिमीले गरेको कामबाट सिक्छन्, अनि त्यस पछाडि गएर वी थिङ्क लाइक हामीले चाहिँ सबैजना मिलेर विल मेक दिस सोसाइटी बेटर होइन. त्यस पछाडि अब हाम्रो रोल पनि छ. सो जसलाई फेरि फर्दरली आई थिङ्क हामीले this is just a part of our induction program. So we are involving our students in different program. Yeah, त्यस पछाडि चाहिँ अब as a part of this induction program, today we had a new episode of the program. So next week we'll be inviting other guests, and we'll be giving a lot of exposure to different ideas. अनि हाम्रो भाइ बहिनीहरूको एकदमै our students they eagerly participated in the discussion. So thank you very much, students, as well, and thank you very much to our teachers, and ultimately thank you very much to our board members, and thank you very much to my friend and my co-coordinator, Pundari sir. Thank you very much for your support. Okay.
Thank you so much for having me, sir.
So if we work together, we think like we'll make this place better. है अस्रुता, ल यति हामी चाहिँ अब बाँकी चाहिँ पछि फेरि कुरा गरौँला. हाम्रो स्टुडेन्टहरू धेरै एक्साइटेड छन्, so they will be ready to work with you. Okay, thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you, sir. Have a good day, everyone.
Okay, see you. Bye bye.
Wonderful session. Thank you. Bye bye.